Hello, good afternoon. It's great to be with you. I'm going to record this, so be on your best behavior, Tracy Wagner. And and I'm so glad that you all made some time here to talk about small groups and COVID-19 D groups too. I know this is kind of a combined effort, but I want to record this for those who are going to jump on and watch it later, who can't be here, and share with you a little bit about, actually want to catch up and connect with you, and also want to hear about what's going on in your lives, in your groups, and then what do we do moving forward. So it's great to be with you. Hello to everyone. We're not going to take a lot of time. We're not going to do a lot of introductions here. I think for the most part, you can see each other. One thing you'll know is in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, if you're using a computer, you'll see you can change the view to the speaker view or the gallery view. If you want to see more than one person in the chat, I suggest hitting that button until you come up with the grid that shows all of the folks that are in the chat, or most of them. I think it could show about 12 people at one time. You'll also notice that there's a chat feature. I see a couple of people are saying hello on the chat. You can feel free to try that out and say hello if you would like. Also, want you to know that you have the ability to mute and unmute yourself. I generally just recommend that everyone in the group be muted unless you have something to say, just due to back noise as well as feedback. And so you have the ability, I think in Zoom, you have the ability to turn off your camera, and it may show your name, or it may also show your picture. It's up to you if you want to use the video feature or not. Zoom also lets you actually call in by phone into this conversation, which actually is relevant for some. I know it is for somebody in my small group. So those are just kind of the highlights there. So as we get started, I actually want to share something with you guys that I came across this week. As need to exit out of this, and I want to pull this up and share this with you. Okay. And this is a quote that comes from a guy, one of my favorite preachers out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, named Jeff Mannion. And we did a series a couple years ago based on one of his books called Satisfied. So it's the same guy. And he wrote this book called The Land Between. And it's a story of leadership and life lessons, really, of the Israelites in that time, from when they were freed from slavery to the time they inhabited the Promised Land. And Mannion says the habits of the heart we foster in this space, our responses and our reactions, will determine whether the land between results in spiritual life or spiritual death. How appropriate for a book that was written several years ago concerning the in-between times and spaces that we find ourselves in, and how often we don't really stop to pause. We don't pause long enough to think and pray and reflect and see God at work. And so I just kind of love, for anyone, you can unmute yourself if you want to share something. I kind of just want to have a check-in with some of you, hear how you are doing personally. If you feel like you're in the land between something right now, I know I am. And how are you doing? How are your small groups doing so far?
Well, I'll go first. I only was able to make contact with 2 of my groups. I left messages for the others, but I haven't spoken to but 2. The 2 that I did speak with are, one was utilizing Zoom for their small group meetings and loving it. And the other group, the leader does not have internet access. They're out in where they don't have access to the internet. So they are doing a phone conference call, and are doing just fine that way. We talked a little bit about anybody in their groups that are at-risk people that maybe are having difficulties, and everything seems to be okay there. They're taking care of their group members. One mentioned that one of their elderly group members is now gone down to Wichita to be with one of his children to stay during the duration. So, but they all seem to be doing good and continuing to meet. So I was excited about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Cindy, for sharing that. Cindy is a community leader, so she kind of oversees or connects with 5 or 6 small group leaders. They fall under her purview and touches base with them. So I'm really encouraged by that. Thank you. Yeah, Carolyn, go ahead.
I'll go next. So I got 2 small groups. I've got the book group and the game group. So our book group, we all Zoomed together and got on the Zoom conference call last Sunday night. And we didn't talk about our book. We just checked in with each other and discussed like how we're feeling about what's going on. And that went really good. Everybody was able to do it at least for like an hour. We were on for about an hour. And then the game group is coming this Sunday, and we're brainstorming how to do a game. We're talking about maybe Trivial Pursuit on a Zoom call, and then just having like groups. So teams. So we can just ask questions off the computer and just kind of play for points and for fun.
Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting idea right there. Certainly, it's easy to have a book club online. It's not as easy to play a board game. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Is there another story to share?
Well, I was one of the groups that Cindy had actually checked in with, but I was going to say we were really pleased because a couple of our members had been out of the country when all this hit, and they got back the day before the ban went on travel from Europe. And so we were just excited that they actually physically got back. They'd gone to see a family member there. And so that was nice that they were back safely in the country. So they started self-quarantine before everything else picked up, just because they'd been out or overseas and everything. But I think it's been very interesting. We have most of the people in our group are in family units of some sort, either spouses or families with kids. And we have one person who's a single individual, and she was talking about the fact that for her, this was just really critical because she says she's an introvert, but in this particular case, now she's not seeing people out shopping. She's not seeing people when she goes into work, that this was part of her connection. So she was really happy that we were able to get the Zoom up and going.
Yeah, interesting. Good. Well, I want to, I have a few things to update all of you on. And in this call, there are D group leaders as well as small group leaders, and some of you do both. And a lot continues to change on a near daily basis. The last update you had from us a week ago was that we were permitting groups to meet face-to-face. And obviously there's a recent I can't, city or county-wide restriction here, safe at home order. And so that has changed for us now. And we are no longer asking or permitting small groups to meet face-to-face, and instead directing folks to the online space if that's somewhere that they are willing to engage each other. There is, one of the things that I have been doing in the margin of my life, now that I seem to have a bit more of it than before, is pondering this question. The book of Acts, you see this rhythm, right? It's the explosion of the early church following the days of Jesus's resurrection, his ascension, and the coming of the Holy Spirit. And Acts chapter 2 paints this picture of believers gathering together in the temple courts for corporate worship, and then meeting in homes to homes, going home to home, where, Acts talks about how they broke bread together and they listened to the apostles' teaching and they prayed and they had fellowship with one another. And so the question I've been wrestling with and maybe you've been wrestling with this too as a small group leader, is what do you do when the temple is closed and people cannot travel house to house, right? And for us, because this is the day, I mean, this day is here. This is where we're at, and there's not a whole lot that we can do to change it on a broad scale. Is maybe we just need to change our mindset and have this paradigm shift that even though it's not our preference to meet online, but online circles are better than rows, circles or rows, or no rows at all. The corporate worship space is closed to large group gatherings. And so there's a shift that's taking place. And I am really wrestling through this. And what does this look like for the future of us, for us as a church, and for the future of our small groups and D groups? And I'm encouraged by it, to be honest. The more I wrestle with it, the more I think there's incredible opportunity for us as a church to expand the mission and the influence of Jesus farther and greater than we ever thought possible. I'm sharing this picture with you because this is a picture of Farrell. He's 85 and his wife Liz is 82, and they're hosting for the first time an online Zoom Bible study. So this can be done. It is possible to continue to have community in a virtual space. And so I actually don't know these two personally. This was shared in a network that I'm a part of today. And it just reminded me of this incredible opportunity that we have to carry on the mission of Jesus's church right where we are. And so it's going to require us to learn and experiment with some things, but that's okay. We're going to learn and grow together and continue to find our way forward in this season, which kind of brings me to where the things I want us to focus on as leaders in small groups and D groups is, first of all, remember that this is a season of experimentation and opportunity. That's how I like to think of new things. Certainly there were some things that I had planned and I was excited about for April, May, June. And now I'm, wondering and I'm questioning. And honestly, I'm probably going to have to postpone most of it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try something new, try something different, and use this as an opportunity to see what sticks and what can I learn about online ministry and online groups during this season. Number two, small groups. Maybe one of the paradigm shifts for you is to focus on friendship and prayer rather than content. So many of our small groups are content driven through Right Now Media or through other tools that are available to you in terms of video teaching. Certainly you can do that. You can focus, you can still have content in an online environment. And I'll share briefly in just a bit about how you can do that. But what would it look like in one of the groups that Cindy Glenn referenced? They're using telephone conferencing. I had a conversation with that leader several weeks ago, and in just encouraging them to focus on the relationship building and prayer. It just so happened that particular group for them, the content wasn't the focus anyway. And so it was just a matter of drawing attention to the fact that, hey, they had all these other great things that are actually happening and were more meaningful than some of the content in Right Now Media. And so I encouraged them to continue to emphasize and focus on, for them, it was hymn singing, which is pretty cool. I think they're the only group that sings hymns together, and to focus on prayer. As far as our D groups are concerned, stick to the plan. You have the plan on paper, and so keep staying the course in your D groups. And obviously the face-to-face meeting will change for all of us. And then last but not least, probably the most important takeaway is just remember that big change happens when you lead small. It's a personal ministry philosophy of mine. And when you lead small, big things really can happen. So for example, I just want to share with you 4 brief points on what does it look like to lead small during this time. Number 1, be present to your small group or your D group. Show up mentally. Also show up randomly when God impresses on your heart that you need to send a text or an email or a message or pick up the phone and call someone. Do it. Follow through on those instincts that you have. Use the tools that are available to you to reach out to the people that you are connected to in your group. Number 2, create a safe space for people to wrestle. That's what we're doing. We want to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus. We have to create that space. And so the thing that I was thinking about today in my quiet time, it came from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, and I wrote it down. And in Paul's talking in that passage about how we are to fight our battles with spiritual weapons. Our battles are spiritual battles, and we can't use worldly weapons to fight spiritual battles. And so we want to celebrate God's victories in people's lives right now. And then we want to demolish the strongholds with God's truth. And so we need to remember that, yes, life is challenging. Life, is kind of stinky right now. In terms of just not being able to do the things that we would normally do. But that's no excuse for anyone in our group to allow that kind of mentality or allow the enemy to get a foothold into the doorway of our homes and in our small groups. And so we want to celebrate God's goodness and life. And we want to recognize the challenges that are before us, but then we're going to squash those strongholds with God's truth in a loving way, of course. Never we're not picking on anybody here. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying, man, we're just going to cover that lie with the truth of the gospel and remember what God says in his word is true. And then we want to make it personal. And this is where you come in as leaders, is to follow the leadership of Paul. He says to his churches, follow me as I follow Christ. I want to make sure that all of you are healthy, emotionally and spiritually, even physically. And you set the example for others to follow. And so I just kind of would encourage you, if you have become a little bit, as I have, a little bit disrupted, my normal routine has been disrupted, to find that new routine, find that new rhythm, and make sure that you are spending time with the Lord each and every day, that you're walking with him and abiding in his word, and you're listening for his voice and his leading in your life. And so make it personal and challenge your people to do the same. Tell them where you are and what you're doing, and encourage them in the midst of this disruption to find a new rhythm, a new normal, and to follow Christ in a similar way. And then number 4, we're always asking this question: what's next for you? I think as I mentioned before, there's a really great opportunity for us as a church here to experiment and try new things. And this is a great opportunity for us to encourage our folks and friends and members and others that we know to experiment too, to get out of our comfort zones, to start something new, to take a risk by leading a group or a book study or a Bible study online, or start a new mission, a new outreach, something that God is prompting them to do. We're always asking that question: what's next for you? Where is God leading you? And how can I as a pastor, how can you as a minister of the gospel help that person do what God is leading them to do? All right. I'll pause in a minute and we'll take some questions. I want to just make sure. Okay. Yeah. So, that's kind of the big picture. That's kind of where we're at, and the opportunities that are before us right now. Any questions or comments about the big picture? I know it's not super practical, but my concern right now is for you as ministry leaders and community leaders. I want you to know that you have my full attention, and you have the attention of all the staff at Grace Point, and we're here to serve you so that you can be servants of Christ to the people that you are loving, caring for in your group. So I'll pause right there and just see if there's any reaction or response or questions from all of you.
Josh, I would just observe, I think that during this time of the pandemic and all that's taking place in our culture and around the globe, that people at this time, maybe for the first time in their lives, are really, really serious about issues of eternity and hope and Jesus and all those kinds of things. And I think we have the opportunity to press in maybe a little bit further or a little bit deeper than we might be otherwise. So I just encourage all of us on this call to, seize the opportunity to press in a little bit and just help people understand that matters of followership and faith and Jesus are real, and either we activate them now or we don't. It kind of goes back to your Jeff Manion quote a little bit later. God's given us tools, and I think people are looking pretty seriously for some tools, to some principle biblical tools that can help us out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Pastor Ed. Thank you. The one thing that concerns me about the online space, and here's what we know to be true from well-researched psychology and social scientists. They tell us that the more time we spend in social media and online space, the more anxious, worried, fearful, depressed, afraid, lonely, and isolated we get. So for you, for all of you, I hope that you are disconnecting from the social media realm regularly. My prayer and my hope for you is that you're taking this season, if you have extra time to rest, take a nap. Might be the greatest gift you give yourself each day is a nap. Make sure that you're getting out into nature and spending time in the quiet, and just turning that phone off or silencing it, putting it on airplane mode or putting it away altogether. Social connection doesn't mean we have to be available 24/7. And so be really intentional about the time that you do spend. But don't go too far. Like I see, Pastor Mark is on this call and Gretchen Giffen is here. Like, it took a pandemic to get them on Facebook. Here they are now. They're on Facebook. Glad you're here. But, you don't have to be there 24/7. Like, you still want to be Mark Giffen and Gretchen Giffen before they were on Facebook. Like, you don't want to hang out there. You don't want to live there. And so make sure you are disconnecting from social media in those spaces as much as you need to, because I'm worried. For me, I'm worried about this generation of children in this kind of environment. Like, it's going to be a booming business for counselors about 9 months from now, right? So that's one of the things, like, we just need to be aware of the amount of time that we're engaging with people in social online spaces. Yes, Gretchen, add all the people on Facebook. There's a comment here. For those of you, if you are on Facebook, I probably already sent you an invitation to join the small group leaders private Facebook page. I update content there regularly. That's the spot to go to get the resources. So look for an invitation from me for that group. I probably tried to add you. Bob loves naps. I love naps too. And I love coffee, Bob. Thank you. All right. Couple things. Feel like
My dad's days are pretty well the same as they've always been.
That's so good. All right. All right. So let's get practical here because we need to know these things just in case somebody asks, which we need to match the right tool for the group. There are 25 to 30 different platforms right now. You can choose as a small group leader or a D group leader to engage people online. Here is a list of 6. And there is a cost for some. The ones I've listed for you are free. And notice too, just given the COVID situation, that some of the options will change in the months to come. Companies are offering their products. They're changing them up a little bit to meet the need. So some might be free until July, like Google Meet. Others have expanded their time limits from, say, Google, or not Google, but Zoom. The free version is actually an hour right now, not 40 minutes. But I know people are getting booted out at 40 minutes because I hear these things. So you use the tool that's right for you in your group. The one thing that is interesting is Skype. Skype came out earlier this week and said that they're allowing up to 50 people on a call for unlimited time. So that might be your best free option at this point if you're concerned about time. If you're not, if time, if you have 30 minutes or 40 minutes, Zoom, like right here, this is a great option for you for more than 2 people. If it's just 2 people, then Zoom is unlimited. It doesn't matter how long you're on a call with somebody on Zoom. But if you add that third person, then the time restriction kicks in. So use the tool that's right for your group, and just take note that Skype might be the best one at this moment. When it comes to planning your online group, it's up to you and as leaders how you want to do it. Small groups have a lot more flexibility than D group leaders do, but just make sure you're starting on time and be patient with those who are still trying to figure out the technology. And obviously you want to welcome everybody and start lightly by just catching up on life and telling stories and having some laughs, whatever that looks like for your groups. But then for small groups, again, I want you to focus on building relationships during this time in prayer. If you do have video content, your options are pretty simple. Your option is to watch the video separately beforehand and discuss it during your group meeting time, or through Zoom. And I think Skype has this option as well. You can watch a real-time video. So for example, I can pull up, excuse me. Let me see if I can find this. Take me a second here. There it is. I go here, and then, can you see that?
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So was that visible? Could you hear that a little bit? I'm seeing head shake. Yeah. So you do have that option to watch something live, which also opens up the possibility for some of you that if you want to use like worship music through YouTube or something, you can share that through a Zoom. You can do that. You can include worship music that way. I might be curious to know if somebody tries that. Let me know how that goes. So you can share your content that way. Let me see if there's anything else. I don't think so. Any questions about that, about the different platforms, or some general tips and guidelines for structuring your time? moving pretty quickly, but I don't want to take a lot of your time.
I will say our group tried Google Hangouts this week, and we're not ever going to do it again.
Okay.
It keeps a very small photos on the side, kind of like ours are all on one screen here, and whoever's talking is really big on your screen, so you can't really have a good view of everyone at the same time.
Okay.
And it just didn't seem to work as well as this. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have the time constraints.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to work as well, and we're all fairly
Our-
technological savvy.
Our
and
group
it
is
just
pretty
didn't
open to whatever technology is needed, and it was still a struggle. So it,
Okay.
it has a place. I've used it before, but it creates far smaller personal viewing windows of each member in the meeting, just so you know. So anyhow.
Okay. That's good.
Now I noticed the lag in the video and between the video and the audio. Is that because the number of people here, or
Yeah.
always happen?
No, I think it depends on, your internet service, the speed of your computer, the number of people on the call. So I'll just be honest, like my internet's terrible out here. We don't have really high speed internet up in far north Topeka. I'm a little bit out of that range. So it's probably more on my end than anything else. Yeah. I'm just reviewing the comments in the chat here. There's some concern about Pastor Ed not being able to get to Starbucks. Also, security. One thing about these chats, you really need to be careful about posting your link on a public space like Facebook page. Make sure it's private or send it via email. There are some real turkeys out there who are spamming Zoom calls with pornography and other irritating material right now. And so just want to discourage you from making, we don't want people to know when and where to find you on your Zoom calls or any other call, because someone may show up and really be very disruptive in that environment. I mentioned earlier, I have a couple in my group who aren't using the Zoom call like we are. Our group met last night through Zoom, and we had a great conversation. And we're walking with somebody who's going through initial stages of cancer treatment right now. And we also have a couple who don't want to use the technology, or they're a little bit scared, I think is more. So working with them. And one of the things, we can do with a technology like Zoom is actually give them a phone number to dial into the call. So even though they may not be seen, they can still be on their phone and participate in the conversation during that group time. And so that's a lot better than not being present at all, because they are sorely missed when they're not there. And I miss them a ton. And so if someone, make suggestions and see how can I help you? Help me help you if you're struggling with this, and we'll see how we can make sure that people who want to be in the calls for their small group or D group time can get there. I don't want anybody to be left out because they're too intimidated by the technology. Yeah. So Tracy's just mentioning in the chat, sending text links via email or text, so it goes to people that it's needed. Thank you. Other questions?
Josh?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Cindy said about the lag in the audio and the video.
He's about to say laundry.
We tried as our small group closing our time with the Lord's Prayer, and I think we have demonstrated that a group of Wesleyans can speak in tongues. Disheveled and garbled as it can possibly be. Our small group is all over the hill, and some of us are further over the hill than others. But it has been an enriching and really edifying time to be together. And we did this via Zoom. Several of our group members are in a very frontline service providing occupations, like 3 of them work at the rescue mission. and some have family members working at Walmart and Sam's, and it's just been really good to pray together and to lift one another up and to encourage each other, and that has been really good. Even good for our D group. 3 of my 4 D group members are guys that are pretty much well over the hill, and hey, we're working this, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road for us as the church. I mean, if we truly believe that circles are better than rows, and we're going to find out really quick. And we have for a long time had a really strong groups culture, and I don't typically worry about small groups and people who are in small groups. They seem to just take care of the things that they need to take care of, and they take care of each other so very well. And so now, the need may be for us moving forward is to figure out how can we launch some more online groups for people who aren't in a group, and try that. Create some spaces just for folks who have never, they're new to the church, they're coming to Grace Point before we had to stop doing services in public, and they just need some people to talk to, and they need that encouragement and that prayer. We need to figure that out. And so if that's something that you would like to help with, great, reach out to me when we're done here. I'm going to share my phone number and my email address, which you all probably have. My email address, jcooper@gptopeka.org. And then I'm going to type my phone number in the chat, so you can text me or you can email me. And let's keep moving. Let's keep moving forward with our mission, and find new and creative ways to engage people in small group environments, and online right now. So I know there's a lot of people who aren't in groups, would love to figure out how we can do that, how we can serve them, reach them, and connect with them better. So my phone number is in the chat. You can text me. That's where you can send your prayer requests to my email or my phone. This would be a great season for me to pray for you more intentionally. So if there's something specifically I can pray for you about, please let me know. Any closing questions? Otherwise, I'm going to close this in prayer and send you on your way. Any other thoughts?
I was going to say, this isn't really a question, but one of our group members had sent me a little snapshot of the screw tape letters. One of the letters from Uncle Screwtape to his nephew. And it's just talking about, we need to send a plague or something. If you can create that, then you'll stop them from meeting together, and then you can break in more easily. And I was thinking, that's exactly what you're saying about combating with the online. So while online isn't as good as in person, it's certainly better than not meeting at all.
Yeah, that's right. All right. I'm happy to show up every Friday at noon, and I'll be prepared for you. I'll send out links each week right now. If you want to join on these calls, great. We'll celebrate. We'll tell more stories next week. So come prepared with a story, and I'll do a short informational teaching piece for you during this time. And so I'll send you that information just as soon as I get it gathered together for next week. I'm going to close this in prayer. Thanks for being here, everybody. And let's give thanks to God today. Father God, this is an incredible opportunity we have to move your mission forward. We say that circles are better than rows, and it just so happens we find ourselves in a situation where our weekly worship gatherings face-to-face aren't happening. And so here we are. Our worship gatherings are closed, but we find ourselves available with a little bit more margin in our schedules, an opportunity to engage one another online. And so I pray, Lord, that you would help us to lead well, lead small by being present to those who we care for and who need our attention most these days, by being available, and by just taking that next right step and helping others to find and follow you in this season, this land between where we find ourselves. And so, God, I pray for these leaders, and I pray for their walks with you. I pray that they're abiding daily in your word and in prayer, that they're finding Sabbath and rest and solitude and silence, and that they are experiencing the comfort of your presence in their lives today. And God, I pray that you would fill their cup, the cup of their soul, to overflowing, and that out of the overflow of their souls, Lord, that they would minister well to those whom they are leading. So thank you for the privilege of being ministers of your gospel today in Topeka, Kansas. And I pray, God, that you would be glorified in this, in all that we do, in how we minister and teach and reach and evangelize and share the good news, the story of Jesus. And I pray, God, that I just pray for the eradication of this virus. I pray, Lord, that you would wipe it from the face of the earth, and that that people would be healed in this time, that they would be healed if they've been infected. And so we pray for our friends and family and those we know who are being touched or affected by this virus. And we ask for your comfort, your healing in their lives and in this time. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Josh.
All right,
you,
friends.
Thanks,
All
Josh.
right. You bet. Thanks for jumping in. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Absolutely.